Hey guys, in this video we'll be continuing with the Python video tutorials. We'll be going over working with lists and files. So some tasks may require you to save the contents of a list to a file. So some situations may require you to read the data from a file into a list. So the other way around, I think. For example, suppose you have a file that contains a set of values that appear in random. Okay, so we have some examples here. So one technique for sorting the values in the file would be to read them into a list. And then you can call the list sort method. So you can sort a bunch of data you can sort a bunch of data by putting it all into a list and then just calling the sort the list sort method. So that'll sort all the data. So let's do an example. So let's see, basically we can do the same thing here. So just before that, saving the contents of a list to a file is an easy procedure. In fact, Python file objects have a method named writeLine, or writelines, that writes the entire list to a file, so you can also write entire list to a file. A drawback to the writelines method, however, is that it does not automatically write a new line at the end of each item. So each item is written for one long line in the file. So we can actually do that example first. So I think we'll be doing a couple examples here, got about 2 or 3 of them, so let's start with that. So we have, so let's just have a main function here to start. So we can create a list of strings. So we can have a list cities, or cities list, whatever. Points to square brackets, and then we'll put some strings inside. We can put some different cities inside. Mix it up with some US and Canadian cities. Alright, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different cities. So we will have to open a file for writing. Okay, so I'll have to write a path again. So we can create a file object here. Out file points to open. So what will be the path? I'll just go for a path here. If that's correct, I forgot. Should be alright. Let's just start a new file instead of working with that old one that we were working with before. I believe it's those slashes, so C. There should be a Windows path. Mac or Linux path might be slightly different. Might require 1 or 2 slashes, either this one or that one. Forward or backslash 1 or 2. You can Google it if you're stuck. So once you do that, we'll just get out of this and then we'll go to the next line. Okay, so whoops, I forgot. So we're actually going to open that in write mode. So just tag on that W at the end with a comma and a string literal, and then we will call out file dot write lines. So that's the method. We'll write the cities list to the out file. So that's what we have here. So we just wrote all this. We wrote the list to the file here. We won't forget to close the file as well. And then after all that, we will call main. So nothing's really going to happen here. Is there an error somewhere? Okay, I think I named this backwards. No, SICIT, whoops, forgot an I here. So file.write lines, cities list. Outfile.write line, cities list, outfile.close. Okay, that should be all. Save it and run it. Nothing's really going to happen here. So these cities should be placed into the list. Sorry, these cities from the list should be placed into the file. So nothing too hard here. We've already gone over these concepts. We've gone over lists, of course, so we're just putting it all together here. Sorry, just having a sip of my tea here. Alright, so let's continue on with the next part of the lesson. So we have just a description. After this program executes, the cities.txt file will contain the following line, which will just contain so what happens, we have all the strings in one line, except for a space between New and York and a space between Salt and Lake. So what we could have done is we probably could have put a comma here, or sorry, not there. We could have put a comma like here, not a comma, sorry, put a space. That might have been one fix to the problem. Of course, if you're actually just collecting lists with Python from different sources, for example, around the internet or something, they probably won't all be done like that. It'll just be normal data. You'll be storing the data into a list yourself. Tagging on that extra space in there probably will be impossible, unless you like find the last character of each word and like do it manually, which will be probably a lot of work. So instead of this, an alternate approach is to use the for loop to iterate through the list, writing each element with a terminating new line character. So let's go over that. So what we can do is actually just continue on with the next part. And like, I mean, if we don't, I think we can just save some of these lines of code because we're going to be doing that again pretty much. So let's just take these lines out here. So we'll take these two lines out. So here we can have for I in cities list. We can say outfile dot write. So we can write item plus a new line, so every time we, sorry, not item, I plus a new line, so it's going to concatenate I with a new line. So we will do that. So now we'll just close the file. And then we'll call main at the end. So this is this should probably overwrite that file. Yeah, so that should probably overwrite that file that we just created. So if we run it, we're not going to see anything. But in this case, after the program executes, we'll see that the cities .txt file will contain basically the different cities with spaces in between, so we actually don't need that one. There'll probably be an extra one there, but between these actual strings, for let's say we didn't have that, this was just left like this before we hit run. We could just probably run it again, but now all the strings will be spaced out, included. So New York will be spaced out, and then New York between Vancouver and Kelowna, Provost, they'll all have a space in between as well. So it won't just be one long string. So now so basically we'll just, I'll just tell you guys a little bit more here. So file objects in Python have a method named readLines that return a file's contents as a list of strings. We've gone over this before in previous videos. So each line in the file will be an item in the list. The items in the list will include their terminating new line character, which in many cases you will want to strip, which means you could just take out that new line. So continuing on, we have another example here that reads the file's contents into a list. So okay, so we're going backwards this time, I believe. We're putting the data into a list, and the loop, so then it loops through the list, stripping out the new line from each element. So we'll just do this one here, and then we'll probably end it there till the next video. So we'll just have some of this code we can keep. So def main, we can change out file to in file because we're taking data in this time from the file. We'll keep the path. I think we'll delete the rest. So now we have into a list, right? So so yeah, we don't need this top part. Cities list, I believe we can get rid of that. So we have our file object pointing to the file location. In this case, my location, I'm going to change that W to read mode to the R. And then we will have basically we'll have a new cities list, so we'll just have cities list here. Okay, actually we could do it into a list. I have a feeling here that we could use a list. Okay, so we have So I think we can just initialize cities list to an empty list. That'll work, and then we'll have, I think it should work, so then we'll have cities list points to infile.read lines. That should have a capital F. So capital F, and then we will I think that's it really. Okay, no, so we'll actually close that infile.close. Then we'll say I points to 0. While we'll have a while loop here, while I is less than len, so the length of cities list. So while I is less than the len of cities list, so it's going to continue to increment until it's less than the length, so basically get the whole list. So now we're going to strip the new line. And we will do that by saying cities list. It's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. It's might be a little complex. The part that's the most complicated is remembering all these methods. Like you'll remember some of the names, but there'll be a few, like for example, I think there's write lines and then write line. So if you're cycling between languages, if you're learning a bunch of languages at once, you might get confused with the different methods. At least between Java and Python, they're pretty similar. Even between C, they're also kind of similar too. But once again, there's a lot of different methods. If you forget, it's always okay to just check the docs. That's what I do. I just type in like Python string methods. I'll just cycle through them. Obviously, there's a lot. You won't remember them all in one day. Especially if you're just doing a couple projects here and there. And most of the time, you may just have a few favorite methods if you're just grabbing and moving data around anyways. So this is one way to do it. You can use the readline method. So again, we're looping through the cities list. So here we'll say cities. So while I is less than len of cities list, and we'll say cities list of list index. Forgive me if I say array index. So if we have cities of list index of I. So cities list of list index I. When I say of list index, I mean between those square brackets. We'll say cities list of list index I points to. So we're going to change it. We'll say cities points to cities list of itself, of cities list of list index I dot r strip the new line. Does that maybe need single quotes? Try that, and then we'll say after that I points to I plus 1. After all that, we'll get out of the indentation. We'll print cities list like that, and then we'll call main at the end, so that should be all. Let's run that. So there you go, we have our list: New York, Vancouver, Kelowna, Provo, Salt Lake, Tucson. So if you don't know, obviously you know some of them. Kelowna's in, if you don't know where Vancouver is, it's in Canada, in in BC. So that's on the west coast, above Seattle. Kelowna's above Vancouver. It's kind of more inland. It's farther up north. It actually gets, you may think it gets cold up there, which it does, but it gets even hotter actually. It gets super hot in there, out there, because I actually don't even know why. I think there's just a lot of open space, a lot of heat, a lot of area for the heat to sit around. It gets up to the over 40, 45, sometimes around 45 Celsius in Asoyas, like around there, 43. It's pretty hot. So then Provo's in Provo's in Utah. Salt Lake's in Utah, and Tucson's in Arizona, so you guys probably know some of those, if not all. So that's the end of the coding lesson and geography lesson. So in the next video we'll be going over just a few more examples, and then we'll move on to 2D lists. So thanks for watching. If you guys liked the video, you can like and subscribe to the channel for more programming tutorials on different languages and investing tutorials, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.